Hello and welcome to the show. This is Everything Under the Sun. My name is Ty. Hope all of you have been doing incredible this past week. Hope your lives have been transforming in the ways that you've wanted them to, whether that's externally or internally. I feel like that's the work that we're doing. That's the process that we're going through. And, I know that I spoke in the last episode about this wanting to be more direct with this expansiveness that we are, this being that we are, the oneness that we are. And I will start going into that. But first, I kind of wanted to speak about something because it's been presented to me in a lot of different ways this past week. And I think that a lot of times when I do these episodes, there are things that happen throughout the week. I can have a plan right as I finish the episode during that week of what I'm going to say next week. And throughout the week, there are certain circumstances that arise that make me realize that maybe something else should be spoken about, or something else, I just feel something else should be spoken about. And that's kind of why I've started saying, I'm not sure if you call it in the beginning of some episodes more recently, I've been saying what's been on my heart, what I've been feeling about speaking about, because, intellectually we can think about certain things, we can plan for certain things, but in our heart, maybe it's telling us something different. Maybe an example of that is you have a job that is offering you a lot of money, and your head saying, economically, this is something great, it'll help me to sustain my rent and do all these other incredible things that I want to do with all the money. But your heart is saying, this isn't really for me. This isn't something that I even want to do. It doesn't even sound good for me. The only thing appealing about this is the money. So, our heart can be telling us to go in a different direction. And oftentimes our mind is telling us to go in another direction. And the direction that the mind that we've developed being in this world is a mind that is setting us up for failure. It's setting us up for failure within. I mean, you may achieve incredible success externally, but the fight that you've had to experience throughout your life, this struggle, the experiences that we tend to go through in order to achieve that success is often very detrimental to our mental health, our physical health. And we don't really take any of that into consideration until we find ourselves in a position that we don't find pleasant, or we find ourselves in a position of, living our entire lives and being on our deathbed and thinking of all the things that we wanted to do instead of what we did. And it's not to say that we need to regret any of the experiences that we've had, because they've made us into who we are today, into the recognition of who we are today, into the being that wants to start to do things for ourselves, the being that wants to start to empower ourselves, the being that wants to start to recognize the expansiveness of ourselves. And that is something to be admired. All these experiences, however tragic or coincidental they may have seemed, they've led you to this point. So it's never to be something regretted. It's just to say that our head and our heart can say different things. And I promise you, if you follow your heart, it's going to be something that leads you to more profound situations, more profound understandings, and things that will ultimately lead you to your happiness. And it may be by breaking a few boundaries, by breaking a few of the systematic things that have been placed, the beliefs that have been placed within our minds that we've held on to. Maybe it's the breaking down of those things that allows us to have that more freedom, but it's following our heart that allows us to break down those walls in the first place. So as I was getting to, it's the episode today is really about, speaking about the challenges that people face in this life. I think that that's something so important to speak about before we speak about the expansiveness of our being, because although we are eternal being, although there is an incredible essence of ourself that is so far expansive, so far beyond this physical reality, that it's something that, it's very hard to believe, it's very hard to wrap your head around, but you can feel it, and it's something that is incredibly powerful. And as we do this work to validate that, we also have to recognize that we are in this world, or at least perceived to be in this world. And as long as that perception continues to exist, we also have to recognize the other things that are happening in this material world that are relevant to us, because all of it is us. So we can't just deny these experiences that we're having, the experiences that human beings struggle with, the political systems that are going about. All these things are very valid in the space in which we dwell. And that's something that always needs to be validated. So I want to kind of speak about that, because I know that a lot of the stuff I speak about can seem very dismissive when it comes to the everyday situations of man, but that's not true. I speak about this expansive side of us, but it doesn't mean that I don't recognize and I don't see the pain and suffering that people experience. it's something that's very tragic. I mean, there are stories that are truly, truly heartbreaking. I mean, a mother that has to say bye to her children, and not because her children are going anywhere, but because she is dying. She has a terrible disease and she has no insurance. She can't cover it, so she knows her children are going to be orphaned. And on the other side of the world, a child already orphaned, 7 years old, taking care of their younger sibling that's 4 years old because both their parents died of starvation. Individuals in war-torn countries that can't sleep at night because of the bombs and the gunshots and the fear of their own lives. This is something that people are experiencing right now. And likely if you were experiencing that, you wouldn't be listening to this. But maybe there are things that you're struggling with. Maybe there are things that you're dealing with and that you're trying to move through in the best way that you know how to, and that is incredible. I'm not denying the experiences at all that humans have gone through for however long. I'm not denying it. The only thing I say is that there is another choice. This struggle that we go through, this struggle that is very pervasive in this life, the struggling of experience. Some people say life is a struggle. The struggle is real. These are sayings that we have, and it's really to recognize that there are situations that are so profound, so deep, so incredibly sorrowful that it's heart-wrenching. And anyone that would be approached with this story or this situation or told this, they would recognize the pain that's felt in that other individual. And if they didn't, we wouldn't be able to connect as humans like we do. Okay, it's something that we all feel, it's something that we all recognize, but it's just a level of recognition. And that being that, in truth, we are this expansive, we are one beingness. But again, just because there is this aspect of self, this being of self, it doesn't mean that we can discount another part of ourselves. And that is the experiences that are within this plane of existence. So the biggest thing here that I really want to get at is that the recognition of this struggle and this pain and this experience that sometimes it's too hard to even focus on expanding what's happening within, because there's so much of a focus on just trying to manage things on the outside. I know that there are pains that people feel that make them not even want to live this extraordinary life. I felt that pain before. There are people that are anxious about the next moment, even if it hasn't come yet. These are things that people deal with in day-to-day situations, and it makes life a struggle. It makes life very challenging. And I'm not telling you, it would be unfair to tell you to forget about those things and just start, being happy, or forgetting about those things and start recognizing the oneness of our beingness. I mean, that is something completely unreasonable to even consider, and I wouldn't ask that of anyone. And there's a certain point within my own journey that I wouldn't even go back and tell myself that, because in that moment, that's not what we need to hear. And in truth, it doesn't matter what anyone presents to you. It can be the truth of all truths. And if we don't choose it, if we don't want to choose it, then that is free will. That is the free will that we are all entitled to. So I recognize that there is a struggle that many people deal with. I mean, there are very tragic things that are happening right this very moment that are just unspeakable. Families being torn apart, people being killed in tragic massacres and situations that are just really, really heart-wrenching. I'm not telling anyone to forget about that. And in fact, I actually encourage people to recognize what feelings come up. Be in that, understand it, know it, and know that it cannot harm you the more that you get acquainted with it. And then when the time comes, when you feel right for yourself, then make the choice for something different. You can say, I know this pain, I know this anxiety, I know this hurt, I know this depression, I know it. I know it so well. And I know it so much that I feel like I can expect it to be in the next situation that I walk into. Once you know it that well, recognize how you feel. And if you feel that it's time, that I want to start recognizing something else, I want to start recognizing my happiness, I want to start recognizing my value, I want to start recognizing my strength. When you start wanting to recognize those things, then that's your choice. But do it in your own time. No one can force you to do anything that you don't want to do, feel any way that you don't want to feel. And although there are situations where we feel a depth of pain, a depth of sadness, you may say, this is not a choice. In many ways, it's not necessarily a choice, because there's a huge structure of beliefs that are held that are weighing and impact the entire reality that we see. So right now we're functioning on kind of autonomic behavior. So yeah, sometimes it doesn't seem like a choice, but the choice is always there. And sometimes it's changing that belief that I do have a choice in this. Shifting that belief, that can be something so meaningful and change your life in such radical ways. Because there's so many times that doctors, parents, elderly people that have had experience in their own lives will tell you, oh, you better not even try that. You shouldn't try that. No one ever is successful trying that. This is, there's no hope in any of that. As people tell you these things, they start to be believed within ourselves. And then we start to spew it to other people and say, well, scientists and doctors say this. It's like, I've never done that research myself. How would I know? The thing is that most of us are just letting out information, spewing out information that other people have told us. How much information are you actually doing yourself? How many times are you actually looking through a microscope? How many times are you actually doing the research and doing those studies and looking within yourself for the answers that you wish to find? In truth, all of the answers are within ourselves. All the people that have come out with all these philosophies and theories and all these different things, the truth comes out when the question is asked from within. But if the question is never asked, then people are just going to be living their lives. The whole aspect of science is that a question manifested from within this place of non-physicality. And then we started to look at, okay, how do we actually bring it into physicality? How do we make it something where it's tangible, just like this physical reality that we seem to feel is real? So we create numbers, we created scientific equations, we create all these different theories and words and all these different constructs to essentially bring into physical reality the stuff that's happening in this non-physical plane of our beingness. So all of it really goes back to that. But again, as we start to recognize that there are these paradigms and beliefs that are built from outside of us, we can remove ourselves from that and say, I feel like I want to choose something different. The struggle that I'm dealing with, the struggle that I'm going through, I feel like I want to choose something different. Even though everyone says you're just going to struggle throughout your life. It's a dog eat dog world. It's like work all your life and, you hopefully have enough for retirement and family for when you died, pass on your name. And that's just life. You just have to deal with it. Maybe something in your heart's telling you, it doesn't feel right to think about that way. It doesn't feel good to think about it that way. I want to start to imagine what it could be outside of that. I feel in my heart that there has to be something else aside from that. I'm not telling you to jump outside of the situation that you're experiencing, jump outside of the pain or sadness or whatever it is that you're experiencing. Feel it to the depth that you want to feel it in. Understand it to the depth and degree that you want to understand it. But know that it's always a choice for when you want to make a shift, for when you want to make that change, for when you want to look from a different lens. There's no judgment in either way. Because again, sometimes we do choose sadness. I remember a lot of times just like being sad and crying, and then like something distracts me from my sadness, and then I realize it and I'm like, oh shit, like I was sad a minute ago. Like I kind of want to feel this. I put on some sad music, I dim the lights, and I'm like, okay, well, now I'm just like really just feeling my sadness, It's like sometimes that's what we choose. And sometimes it's something that we just react in a way to just respond to. We just respond to situations in those ways. And it becomes our lives. It becomes our every moment situation because that's what we're responding to. And as we start to, again, recognize that we do have power to shift our lives, then that's when we can start making those choices to choose something else, to start focusing our attention somewhere else, to start giving value to something else. So yeah, that's all I really have for this episode. It was really just, I wanted to make sure that was acknowledged, and I know that I've acknowledged it in several episodes and spoken about it, but I kind of wanted an episode fully dedicated to just directly vocalizing that and recognizing that, it doesn't matter if you are a Buddhist monk in a mountain that's achieved incredible enlightenment and, vanishes into thin air because of how enlightened you are, or you're someone that's struggling because you're dealing with some kind of major crisis in your life and you don't know how to handle it. It doesn't matter where you are in this life, what experiences you're feeling in this life, there's no separation. There's no inequality between any of us. Okay? There's no one that has a special skill that you don't have. There's no one that has an ability or capability that you do not have. I promise you that. And you may say, well, those other people can walk and I can't walk. Those other people can see and I can't see. Well, what eyes are you looking through? Where are you walking? There are so many situations in which the things that we see with the physical eyes, they will show us something. They will show us a world that our heart doesn't believe in because it feels bad, doesn't it? That is our truth that says, this isn't something that it doesn't feel right. It's not something that feels right for me. When we feel a loved one pass on into, no longer living in this life, part of the pain is that we still feel their presence. There's moments where we feel them so intimately. We feel that moment. We hear their voice. There are all these reminders that makes it feel like they are there. But our physical eyes want to see them as well. And that brings so much pain. But I promise you that is an incredible gift. Your loved ones are never away from you. They're never away from you. Even the ones that are living right now, they're with you right now. And the ones that have passed on from this physical plane are also with you. And in those moments that you are in that deep pain of longing for them, that is when those signs will start coming up more. You'll hear their voice. You'll have scents that remind you of them. And then as time goes on, another part of that pain of losing someone is when you start to forget. You recognize that you woke up and you didn't start crying. You realize you went an entire day without thinking about that person. And then you start feeling bad. You're like, am I going to forget this person? No, you are not going to forget that person. They are with you always. They cannot be anywhere else. But in that time that you needed them for healing, personal healing, the time that you needed their presence, even though it felt painful to recognize their presence and not see their body, that was part of your healing. That was part of a subtle recognition that they're always with me. As we heal from losing someone, there is that piece of knowing they're always with me. People always come to that realization. It's like, when you first lose someone, it's devastating. It feels like your heart ripped out. It feels like, everything is lost, that you're never going to see them again, that you'll never connect with them again. But as we do this healing process, it's almost miraculous. We start to realize they'll always be with me in some kind of way, whether you believe that they're looking at you from heaven or in another realm or in the ghost realm or whatever it is that you believe. There is a recognition that, I still feel them with me. They're with me in my heart, and they're always live forever. Whatever it is, there's some degree of recognition that they are always with you, and that's because they are. The truth of our being cannot be hidden. It cannot be refuted. It cannot be torn away from. We cannot separate ourselves from it, no matter how much we believe this physical reality to be our existence. There's so many things in this life that are teaching us and showing us these examples of how we are much more than this, how there is much more than this. And it's up to us to start to recognize that. But we don't have to be anywhere different than we are right now. We can start right now. And in any moment, in this now moment, you can start. Whether this now moment is right now as you're listening to it or 20 years from now. It's like it doesn't matter. Now is now. And there's no rush in needing to get anywhere. Be as you are. Be where you are. Love as you are. And allow yourself to experience this life in the way that feels most comfortable for you. And if it feels comfortable for you to cry, then cry. If it feels comfortable for you to get mad, then get mad. Feel those things. Express yourself. Know that it's okay. And then realize, after all the tears are dried, that you want happiness. That out of all of it, you wanted peace. You want love. You want to value yourself. You want to recognize that you are an incredible value already, just for being yourself. These are the things that we strive to move towards, to evolve towards. This is what this healing process is. It's the allowance of these things, this pain, this experience, this drama that we've been going through. Recognize it, allow it, but don't allow it to dictate your next moment. Let it be as it is now. Feel as you feel now, and know that you always have a choice. You always have a choice. And if there's anything in your mind that comes up that says, well, this we don't have a choice about, think again. You are eternal creation. You are beingness. You are all knowingness. You are all of it. And yet, out of all of it, you can pretend. You can believe that you aren't. And if that's not the greatest thing ever, then, I mean, I don't even know what. It's like, if we can do that, then I promise you, anything in this life we can overcome, as long as we believe it to be so. And as you notice, evolution is the moving forward. We're not devolving in any kind of way. Evolution is always moving forward, moving to greater levels of consciousness, greater levels of existence. Everything is always moving towards the beingness that we are, because we've already brought ourselves to the grossest point of existence, where we feel ourselves to be very base beings, and we are not that. And we're starting to come to this realization that we are much more. We've always known it within our hearts, within something that is just not tangible. We've always known it, and now it's the time that we start realizing it. So be as you are. Take this life as you take it, and know that when you want to choose for happiness, when you want to choose for joy, when you want to choose for self-value and self-love and strength and peace, that you can choose that. And it may be a process of breaking down beliefs. It may be a process of letting go of the struggle. It may be a process of forgiveness. But as long as you continue to value what's on your heart, it will lead you to this place of our beingness, of peace, of love, of greater and greater and greater things. And yeah, again, that's all I really have for this episode. If you have any thoughts or ideas or anything that you'd like to share, you can send those to everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com. You can join the Instagram page, everything.sunpodcast, the Twitter page, @everysunpodcast, the Facebook group, @everysunpodcast, or the YouTube page, Everything Under the Sun Podcasts. And yeah, that's all I have. Love you all so much. Happy holidays and Happy New Year's. If I don't speak to you before then, love you so much, and I'll talk to you soon.